Andre Harris was the kind of man towns remember for the right reasons. He wore his badge like it meant something, because to him, it did. Sheriff of Jefferson County, Alabama for over 12 years, Andre was more than just a man in uniform. He was the type of guy who bought Christmas presents for kids whose parents couldn't, who pulled over teens just to give them a talk, not a ticket. His church pew never sat empty, and his phone never turned off. Not for calls from strangers, not for cries from friends, but no one saw what was coming. Least of all, him. Andre wasn't flashy, he wasn't loud, but he was solid, rock solid. He'd married Jasmine back in 2006. She was radiant, warm, and quick to forgive. Everything he wasn't, but everything he needed. They had 4 kids: Malik, Jaden, Cameron, and sweet little Aaliyah, their only daughter. And if you asked him what mattered most, it wasn't the badge, it was them. Every morning he packed their lunches. Every night he knelt by their beds and prayed. He was raising a family he believed in, a family he built brick by brick, moment by moment, sacrifice by sacrifice. But one brick had been pulled from the very foundation, and he never saw it happen. Tyrone Harris was the kind of man who made you laugh and made you nervous at the same time. Andre's younger brother by 3 years, Tyrone was all charm and swagger. Where Andre stood tall and firm, Tyrone danced through life with a smirk. Failed startups, failed girlfriends, failed promises. He couldn't hold a job more than 6 months, but somehow always landed on his feet. Still, blood is blood. And Andre believed in giving second chances, even third ones. So when Tyrone needed a place to stay in 2010, Andre didn't hesitate. He opened his home, gave him a key, trusted him with the kids, the house, his wife. And Jasmine? She was polite. At first, it started small. Tyrone making dinner while Andre worked overtime. Tyrone watching the kids when Jasmine ran errands. Tyrone fixing the screen door, mowing the lawn, playing the fun uncle while Andre kept the streets safe. Andre didn't notice the way Jasmine laughed more when Tyrone was in the room, or how Tyrone never missed a chance to brush her shoulder, to linger a second too long. Because Andre didn't think like that. He believed in honor, in loyalty, in family. He never imagined he'd become the only man in his home not in on the secret. The affair didn't start with sex. It started with attention. Jasmine, tired, alone, craving something Andre couldn't give while married to his badge. Tyrone, restless, reckless, always chasing what he couldn't have. Together, they created a storm so slow and quiet, it went undetected for years. By the time the lines were crossed, they were deep. By the time the children were born, the DNA didn't lie. But no one was looking for truth. Not yet. To the outside world, Andre was still the man everyone trusted. Inside his home, a betrayal was blooming in secret. And the truth, it wasn't waiting to be discovered. It was growing. In the faces of the children he kissed goodnight. Tyrone never planned to stay long. He told Andre he just needed a month or 2 to get back on his feet. Find work, pay off a few debts, start over. That was in 2010. By 2012, he was still sleeping in the spare room, still unemployed, still fixing things around the house and calling it help, still calling Jasmine sis with that crooked smile, the one that meant something and nothing all at once. Andre didn't press him. He thought Tyrone just hadn't found his purpose yet. He didn't know Tyrone had already found it, in Jasmine's arms. The affair had started slow, shamefully, secretively. A kiss in the laundry room while the kids napped. A whispered confession late at night when Andre was working a triple shift. A moment stolen behind the garage while grilling burgers for a family BBQ. At first, Tyrone told himself it was just lust. But it wasn't, because Jasmine didn't treat him like a disappointment. She didn't mock him, didn't measure him against his brother. When she looked at him, she didn't see a man who couldn't get his life together. She saw a man who could have been more. She gave him something Andre never did: power, even if it was built on a lie. But Tyrone wasn't content being her secret. As the years passed, he started dropping comments, quiet, probing ones. "Jazz, what if we had met first? Do you ever think about leaving him? Sometimes I think the wrong brother got the girl." At first, Jasmine would laugh it off, but laughter is a fragile shield, and Tyrone was relentless. By the time Jasmine gave birth to their third child, Tyrone had stopped wondering if he was the mistake. He started to wonder if Andre was the imposter. Because every time he looked at those kids, Malik, Jaden, Cameron, he saw his eyes, his dimples, his blood. But none of them called him Dad. They called him Uncle Ty, and it tore at him. Because he hadn't just stolen his brother's wife, he had stolen his legacy. Tyrone started to resent the entire house. Andre's badge on the wall, his name on the mortgage, the way the kids clung to him at the dinner table shouting, "Daddy," when he walked in. It should have been him. He should have been the one in the uniform, the one building a family, the one respected, admired, loved. But instead, he was the shadow, the side character, the man behind the curtain pulling strings no one could see. And it wasn't enough. So Tyrone did what Tyrone always did. He pushed the limits. He started getting careless, touching Jasmine too long when Andre was home, laughing a little too loudly at her jokes, slipping into the kitchen when she was alone and resting his hand on her lower back. Just for a second, too long. He thought he was being slick. But secrets rot over time, and something had begun to smell. Andre couldn't name it yet. He couldn't prove it. But some nights, he'd stare at the faces of his boys and feel strange. Not love, not suspicion, just distance. A sense that something didn't add up, that he was walking through a life someone else had written for him. He didn't know it yet. But Tyrone's obsession was about to make sure he found out. Jasmine used to pray for peace. Not the kind you find in church sermons, all hymns and hallelujahs, but the kind that let you breathe without guilt pressing on your chest like a cinder block. But by 2016, peace was something she no longer believed in. The affair had gone on far longer than she ever imagined. It had stopped being passion and become something heavier, like quicksand. And every morning she looked at her kids. She felt like she was sinking further into it. She loved Andre, or at least she had. He was good, dependable, strong. But love, real love, has a way of dying quietly in the spaces where conversation dries up, where "I love you" turns into "Did you take the trash out?" And Andre, for all his loyalty, had given more of himself to his badge than his home. He was always tired, always working, always somewhere else. So Jasmine found connection where she shouldn't have, with Tyrone. But it stopped being a thrill years ago. Now it was just a secret she carried like a ticking bomb. She never meant for the children to be caught in it. She told herself it wasn't a betrayal if Andre never found out. She told herself blood didn't matter. Not when Andre was the one changing diapers and teaching Malik to ride a bike. She told herself that Tyrone would stay in his lane. But lies have gravity, and hers were starting to pull everything down with them. She couldn't unsee the looks Tyrone gave her. Not just desire, but entitlement. He'd grown bolder, more possessive. He started talking like the future belonged to them. like Andre was a placeholder in a life that was supposed to be his. That terrified her. Because Jasmine never wanted this to break the family. She just wanted to feel alive again. Now, she was trapped in a story that no longer felt like hers. The weight began to show. She stopped smiling at church, stopped dressing up for dinner, stopped sleeping well. Andre noticed. He asked gently, "You okay?" She always said, "Just tired." But she wasn't tired. She was unraveling. And then came the moment she couldn't ignore. A simple offhand comment at the kitchen table. Malik had spilled cereal on his shirt, and Jaden laughed, saying, "You look just like Uncle Ty when he's sloppy." Jasmine froze. The kids didn't mean anything by it, but it cut her like glass, because she could see it too. The smirk, the dimple, the walk, pieces of Tyrone, in children who called another man Dad. It was getting harder to pretend, so she tried to end it. She told Tyrone, "No more. We're done." He laughed at first. Then he looked her dead in the eyes and said, "You don't get to walk away. You made me believe this was ours." She knew then that he wouldn't let go. And if she didn't end it, someone else would. So she made a choice. She would tell Andre the truth. Not because she was brave, but because the guilt was eating her alive. Because every night, she tucked in kids who carried her biggest lie in their blood. And if Andre was ever going to forgive her, or even just survive this, he had to know. It was a Tuesday. Ordinary in every way but one. Andre had worked a double shift that day. 2 domestic disputes, a break-in, and a suicide call that left him staring at the windshield in his cruiser longer than usual. He was tired, not just in his body, but somewhere deeper. He came home late. The house was quiet, kids already asleep. The only light on was in the kitchen. And Jasmine. She was waiting, not in her usual pajamas, not with the usual glass of wine. She was standing straight, her hands clasped tight, her face pale but resolved. Andre paused in the doorway. "Everything okay?" She nodded slowly. "Can we talk?" He knew that tone. He'd heard it in witness statements and 911 calls. It was the sound people made before they said something that would change your life forever. She didn't cry. She didn't make excuses. She just said it, like a confession wrung from the soul. "There's something I need to tell you. About Tyrone. About the kids." The room went still. Andre blinked, not sure he heard her right. She kept going, her voice steady, but trembling at the edges. "Malik, Jaden, Cameron, they're not yours, biologically. Tyrone and I, it was a mistake. A long time ago. It was supposed to end, but it didn't." Andre just stood there. A man who'd faced down armed suspects and talked men off ledges, now frozen in his own kitchen. She kept talking. "I didn't know how to stop it. I didn't know how to tell you. And then we had kids, and you loved them so much. And I thought, maybe it didn't matter. But it does. I know it does." He stared at her like she was someone else. Some stranger who had broken into his home wearing his wife's face. "Say that again," he whispered. She did. And when she said Tyrone's name again, Andre flinched, like it burned. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't throw anything. He just walked out, got in his truck, and drove. No destination, just roads, endless blacktop and the rising scream in his chest. He thought of the diaper changes, the basketball games. First time Malik called him Dad, he thought of Tyrone, laughing at his jokes, passing the mashed potatoes, standing beside him in family photos. All of it a lie. Every memory twisted now. Every moment poisoned. He drove until he hit the edge of town, parked in a church parking lot and just sat for hours. At some point, his hands began to shake. He reached into the glove box, pulled out a DNA test kit he'd secretly mailed for weeks ago, after that offhand comment Jasmine made about Jaden's smile. The results were already in the back seat. He hadn't opened them. Not until now. He flipped through them by flashlight, read each line. Not the biological father. Not the biological father. Not the biological father. Only Aaliyah was his baby girl. 3 sons belonged to his brother. He screamed so loud, the windows fogged with the heat of his breath. When he got home, it was almost dawn. He stood over his kids as they slept, each of them curled into themselves, dreaming in innocence. He loved them. Still. But now it hurt. Jasmine met him in the hallway. Her face said it all. She knew he knew. But he said nothing. Just walked past her, the silence heavier than any words. He knew what he had to do. He couldn't live like this. Not in a house built on betrayal. Not under the same sky as the man who took everything from him. The night hadn't ended. It was only just beginning. Andre Harris had made arrests. He'd delivered news no husband or wife ever wanted to hear. He had knocked on doors at 2 a.m. and held broken people in his arms, whispering the only thing he knew how to say. "You're not alone." But when he opened the bedroom door that morning and saw Tyrone in his home, in his house, holding his daughter's cereal bowl and laughing with Jasmine like nothing had shattered, something inside him left. Not snapped, not burst. Just quietly walked out of his soul and slammed the door behind it. He didn't speak. He walked to the gun safe in the closet, unlocked it with trembling hands, took out his service weapon. He could hear the cereal spoon clinking in the kitchen, could hear Jasmine humming. He walked down the stairs. Malik, Jaden, and Cameron were watching cartoons, piled on the couch. They looked up as he passed, and for the first time, he couldn't meet their eyes. He stepped into the kitchen. Tyrone turned, smiling. "Hey, man, didn't know you were..." The first shot hit him in the throat. He gurgled, fell into the pantry door, knocking spice jars to the floor. Jasmine screamed. Andre turned to her, eyes blank, face unreadable. "Please," she whispered. "Please, think about the kids." "I did," he said. The second shot went through her chest. She collapsed onto the floor next to Tyrone. And just like that, it was done. The silence afterward was like a new kind of gravity, so heavy it nearly pushed him through the floor. The gun slipped from his hand. He walked upstairs like a man sleepwalking. He opened Aaliyah's door, just 5 years old, still dreaming of rainbows and princesses. He kissed her forehead, then went to the boys' room, told Malik, "Get your sister. Stay upstairs. Do not come down." They listened because they could feel it too. Something had broken. Something permanent. Andre called 911. "This is Sheriff Harris," he said. "I've just killed my wife and my brother. Please send someone. I'm not armed anymore." He waited on the porch, blood on his hands, his badge still on his chest. He didn't run, didn't hide. When the police arrived, he raised his hands slowly, knelt, and said, "I have nothing left." And in that moment, he didn't. The trial came quickly. The evidence was overwhelming. His confession, his service weapon, the statements from his children. The media turned the family into headlines. Sheriff murders wife and brother after DNA reveal betrayal. Bloodline, a town torn apart sleeping with the enemy. The killings inside a cop's home. Andre didn't fight it. He sat in court like a statue, silent, still. When asked to speak before sentencing, he said one sentence: I was trained to protect others. I just wish I'd known I needed to protect myself. He was sentenced to 2 life terms without parole. The judge called it a tragedy that justice could not undo. And they were right, because the real sentence wasn't prison. It was memory. It was waking up every morning to the image of your wife's face in those final moments. It was the sound of your brother's laugh turning into a gurgle. It was your daughter asking, years later, "Daddy, why did you hurt Mommy?" The children were placed in the care of extended family. Malik stopped speaking for 3 months. Jaden started writing poetry full of things a 10-year-old should never understand. Cameron began flinching at the sound of footsteps. And Aaliyah? She cried for her mom every night. She didn't understand what had happened, only that Daddy never came home again. And Andre Harris, the man once called a pillar, a protector, a father, became a cautionary tale whispered in Sunday school rooms and police briefings, not because he was evil, not because he wanted to hurt anyone, but because betrayal, left unchecked, can rot the soul. And some truths, once uncovered, don't set you free. They burn everything down with them.